Hey y'all, it's Bridget Cutshall. Thank you for listening to Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Jesse Todisco. He is from Boston originally, and now he lives in the Metro Atlanta area. And it's a fantastic story, background in resilience. And he has his own company, 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. And then he also has a foundation called Alanna's Angels. Can you introduce yourself, Jesse?
Hey everybody, and thank you so much, Brigitte, for having me on the show. Jesse Todisco, and it's going to be a great conversation.
And thank you for your time. And I think we connected with each other on LinkedIn. And I think you have, a great story. You had a military background and you had to deal with, after you're married, you had a child or a baby die at a really young age. And that affected, your resilience helped you get through all that. I know it's not easy every day, but can you kind of tell me, I guess in the military, is that how it starts? Is that kind of how you went back to Boston and came to Atlanta?
Yeah, so just kind of some context, before we jumped on, we were talking about resilience and some of the things that I had seen and done. And so just, for some context, for about 6 or 7 years, I was bullied pretty heavily going through school. And, that by itself will make you tougher, just
Right.
in terms of mental toughness and physical toughness. And, growing out of that was something that stuck with me through life in the mindset of fighting for the underdog, so to speak, standing up for those that have been like unjustly persecuted, whatever. So that was something that had built that mindset of resilience. And then, another piece that led to the resilience of dealing with that situation was, my father was a 40-year heroin addict before he got clean, and seeing that every day. And I actually fell into the same trap before I left for the military, which is what you brought up. So for about a year and a half, I started off, I was selling drugs, doing drugs, and then I finally decided to clean up my life. And I left for the military. And when I went down to the military, it was in the early 2000s. I served in the Navy, which was an unbelievable time, and it was fun. It was great. But when my time was through, I decided to move back to Boston, where I was from. And when I got back there, things just were the same or worse in a lot of ways. A lot of people up there were, doing some bad things, and I didn't want to be in that environment again. So I made the change and had a family member living down here in Georgia. Moved down in 2006, and life has been a beautiful blessing ever since. And so that resilience piece really was tested. My wife and I have been together for almost 13 years now. We had our first pregnancy, healthy pregnancy. My wife Alicia, was an amazing human being, badass. She went through a 40-hour labor and delivery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very long. She wanted to make sure that she did it as natural as possible. So no epidural, none of that stuff. She just really, champion. I can't even imagine how that was for her, but just watching from the outside, looking at her, it was incredible. So 40 hours, and after 40 hours, our first daughter, Alanna Marie, came out injured at delivery. And so they don't know exactly what it was, the mechanism of the injury, but they know that her airway was compromised at some level. And so when she came out injured at delivery, she was immediately put on life support. But even though she was alive, it was the machines that were keeping her alive. So she wasn't stillborn, but she definitely wasn't showing viability outside of those machines. And so for 7 days, which were the longest, now seem like the fastest days of our lives, we were living in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, where they would put, newborns if there was an issue. And so we're in there, and this is in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were running a business in Charlotte, North Carolina, my wife and I, and we were going through the surreal process of losing our first child. And after 7 days, they gave us kind of an ultimatum where they just said, basically, this is what life's gonna look like for your daughter forever. She's never gonna come off the machines. And so after 7 days, we made that tough decision to let her go. And so that was a very weird process where, we give the okay, the nurses that were amazing in the NICU were very supportive during that time. But basically what happens is they take her off the life support and they put her in my arms. And so sitting there, it felt like forever. This is part of that time weird bendingness of like going through a traumatic event where, I felt like it was 15 minutes. My wife felt like it was only a few minutes, but we held her until she took her last breath. And so, you know, the movies always, when someone passes away or something is very romantic, they kind of look at the person one last time, close their eyes, and kind of fade off. Well, this was just a little bit different, where she was fighting. She was a fighter, and so she was
Right.
off the machines, gasping and trying to live. And for what felt like about 15 minutes, we endured that. So that whole background that I just gave, I think, served as some sort of basis to be able to deal with this event. And so yeah, that was the loss of our daughter, Alanna Marie.
That, I just can't imagine. I know everybody deals with death, but I think losing a child is probably up there the hardest thing. I mean, I just can't imagine, and you had to deal with that. And you're, like you said, the pregnancy was normal, but the birth came out some kind of injury. So was she like, when they unplugged it, is that, I shouldn't say brain dead, was that what it was? Is that what?
Basically, there was, so the only thing that we ever really were able to see in terms of any signs of life is you would kind of like try to rub her left foot, and like her foot would curl a little bit. So there wasn't really a lot of brain function from what we could see and what we were told. It was just, you know, one of those things where we didn't know about this world like most people that don't experience, that haven't had a child, or, you know, don't go through those things. Once you have a child in a pregnancy, you realize that even though medicine is so far advanced, there's still a lot of possibility for complications. Right. And so we didn't know that until you're brought into this world, right? And so now that we're into this world, this was back in, you know, 2009. You realize there's a whole world out there. And so we, you know, my wife and I, we started the Grieving Process right when that happened. And that was one of our first companies we were running together in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we just decided after a few months to shut that company down and move back to Georgia, where she's from. And that's where we're at present day today. And just kind of start over. But from there, we had a miscarriage. And so we saw the Alanna Marie pass away. We saw a miscarriage.
Oh, man.
And then
traumatic. Yeah.
There was some kind of regurgitation of old feelings and old experiences by having that miscarriage. And so we get pregnant a third time, and this was with our almost 6-year-old son, Grayson Lee. And we get pregnant with Grayson, and after you've been through 2 losses, most people are just wanting to, you know, if they don't know your story, or if they haven't heard your story, people are really excited. Well, what are you going to have? We hear you're pregnant. You know, at that point, we just wanted a healthy baby. And so, you know, one day I was praying and I said, God, please put your grace on my son. And I didn't even know that. I had this feeling come over me. I didn't know what we were having yet, if it was a boy or a girl. It was actually about a few days before we found out. And so we found out we were having a boy, and based on that prayer and based on our prayers being answered, we named him Grayson. So God's grace on our son.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, and it, you know, not exact spelling, but the idea was there. And so that was our first son. He'll be 6 in July, which is amazing. Right. And then our second son, we had William. He's 3.5. And so we've been able to get through it. And then through the catharsis and through the therapies that we received in counseling, and we've turned it around. The first 2 losses with Alanna Marie and our second pregnancy, who we call Nugget. We didn't have a name for Nugget yet, but we turned it around, and we built this nonprofit, Alanna's Angels. Alanna's Angels serves people that have been through similar experiences, from a miscarriage all the way to the death of an adult child. And what we've learned through our own catharsis and therapy and healing, and being able to help other people through this, is a loss is a loss. A miscarriage, you know, adult child, it's all very personal, very situational to who that person is. And so we put together support services and events throughout the years that help people with this healing process through Alanna's Angels.
Wow, that is an amazing, I mean, it's an amazing story. And I think it's helpful, like you said, you moved back to Georgia to be with your wife's family. That probably helps. And I think just kind of, you mentioned before, changing environment kind of helps you heal. I think sometimes the environment, like you mentioned in Boston, was not good for you long term. So you came down here, and I'm just glad that you're trying to help other people with Alanna's Angels. And because a lot of people don't, you know, they just need to be lifted up, right? And support by someone who dealt with what you had. Like I said, I've had, mentioned earlier, I had a couple of miscarriages too, but but that was hard. I just don't talk about it, you know?
Right.
I don't know why, but, because it was hard.
Yeah.
And, but then that was after my two sons were born. So I had the opposite. I had two normal pregnancies within the miscarriages after. But so I understand it still makes you feel bad, but definitely having Alanna's experience, I think what you're doing is going to help so many people. And is there like a website for that, or?
Yeah, so it's actually with me building my company outside of that, with my wife focusing on her career, we've kind of taken the foot off the gas pedal with pushing that nonprofit as much, but it does exist. If you go to Facebook, it's at Alanna's Angels, and there's a lot of content there.
Okay, yeah, I can write it in the summary and put if people want to know more about it.
I'll share it with you.
Yeah, do that. I think that would be good. You just don't know. And that's why I became really involved in health advocacy, just because of weird things that has happened to me. And I just want to share other people's stories. And like I mentioned, we all have to deal with issues and deaths, but I can just, my heart feels for you guys. I just couldn't imagine having a child to be born and not still here.
Thank you so much, and likewise for you.
You mentioned you have your new business. So what is that? I mean, the 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. What prompted you to start that?
Yeah. So 46 and 2 Wealth Partners is an evolution, and that's part of what the word 46 and 2, that the meaning of that is to evolve. But so I've been in financial services for almost 9 years, one way or another. I've been an entrepreneur on and off my whole life. And so it's always been one of those things where I was destined to kind of be doing my own thing, and it happened to be finance. And so what I do today is for business owners and individuals or families, I teach them how to live well today and enjoy the life they've always wanted with never running out of money. And I do that through, I'm an investment manager. I have my own company. I don't work for a broker-dealer. And I do it under the guise of a fee-only fiduciary. And what that means is, as a fiduciary, which is a really funny word, it just means that by law, I have to do what's in the best interest of my clients. And so when they succeed, I succeed. I don't receive commissions. I don't sell products and services. I manage portfolios. I help clients that are business owners scale their companies, whether it's through cash flow or leveraging debt. I help individuals and families live their best life. If they want to go on a great vacation, if they want to, build something, if they want to, accomplish anything. Money is a tool to be able to do those things. And so I teach my clients the wisdom of wealth, and we share in that journey together, and I win when they win.
I like that because it's so important. People don't understand it, at least kids in school, they don't learn about money and finance, and I think that's just kind of sad. I remember when I was in high school a long time ago, we had to learn how to balance a checkbook. And that's one of the.
Bring that back, even though that's maybe a different form. Maybe it's like balance the online banking, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They need to bring it back, because just like yourself, I had to learn these things the hard way, and most people don't know how to do this stuff. So you can't go to your cousin or your uncle or your friend.
Right.
You have to have somebody that has. I always use this analogy. Whenever you want to get fit, you find a personal trainer or someone who inspires you, that resonates with you, that's already done it. That's already done the meal planning, the working out, the sleep, calibration. There's so much that goes into it. But you're not going to go to someone who's never worked out or done any of those things before for advice. So you have to find the people that have done it and done it well, that can guide you and walk you through those seasons.
Right. I think that's a good point. You don't want to just go to anybody. And I like the fact that it's a fee-only fiduciary service, because some people feel, from what I understand, they feel taken advantage of. I think that's the right word.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? There's a great YouTube video, and if you want to put a link for this as well, it's called The Butcher and the Dietitian. And so when you go to a butcher, whatever they have that's hot that day or they need to sell that day, they're going to sell you. So when you walk into the butcher shop, they're going to, I have this steak, or I have this fish, or I have this item. Here you go, buy it. Or you can go to a dietitian who doesn't sell you food. They just say they take a diagnostic of your life, what you're going through.
Right.
And they give you the best advice that's suited for you. So that's the separation between what I do and 95% of financial planners.
Right.
The 95% of financial planners sell a product or service for a commission. So they're selling you the steak, they're selling you the fish of the day. But then what I do is I do a full overview of what's best for you, and that's the separation.
That's a good point to make, is everybody is individual regarding your health, your background, your money, your situation, your job. It's just, it, that's something I've tried to emphasize with my kids too, is how to make sure, also emphasizing saving money too.
Right.
You do
That's where it
not,
starts.
right, you do not know what can happen. And I was just lucky, I should say lucky, but very persistent and resilient in trying to make money and save money, because I'm a little
I
bit
love it.
older than you, but I understand the importance of it. And um, I'm one of those people, I'm not really fancy, even though, I know
You're not
everybody.
bougie, is what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
You're not bougie.
No, I'm not. There's a good word. My son says, I'm just not. Some people are, but it's not important to me. I don't judge people who want all that fancy stuff.
Yep.
But we keep our cars until they, as long as we can, just because it's big investment. But then you change the oil in your car and it's going to last, regular base is going to last a little bit longer. And that's kind of how I think too about your body. You treat it good,
Yeah.
take care of it. And say with your money, right? You have to look at that. I'm sure you have to take a step back and look at that on occasion. I'm definitely not an expert in finance, but I understand enough, I think. But I, my goal now in my age, I just want to try to be a mentor and help other people, because I've been, having a family, you understand, you go through a lot, and try to not judge people. I think that's important.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you don't want to judge people. And the thing about money and financial planning is it's a lifelong game. There's
Yes.
people out there that want to get rich quick, or they're looking for the hot stock, or they're looking for this great new investment. But a lot of that stuff is easy come, easy go. And it takes a ton of resilience and a ton
Yes.
of, doing the right things over the course of longevity to be able to be where you want to be. And so I think it ties beautifully into the theme of your podcast and your ethos of resilience and doing the work, even when it may not be as fun as it could be, whatever the case may be. But if you build habits that are meaningful and successful, they kind of just take care of themselves. And so you could set things into place, like you mentioned, savings. There's a lot of like just wise decisions you can make that aren't hard to do, that people can implement, and just it'll carry with them through life. And more importantly, you mentioned your kids a couple times. You can pass these nuggets of knowledge down to them so that they're getting this information, because they may not be getting it anywhere else.
Correct. Right. And it is their environment that they're in, and where they're learning, and how they I don't know, the role models, kind of how they're spending money too.
Yep.
And so I'm glad my kids, they finally understand, their parents really aren't really that tightwads. It's not important to me to just be blowing money. I like to save my money for like traveling. I like an experience. That's just me, rather than buying bougie stuff.
Speaking to my heart right now. I have it in one of my bios somewhere that as a family we made a decision to stop blowing money on random stuff and pay for experiences. Like you
Correct.
said, travel or doing stuff with family and friends. I mean, it's the moments that matter, and that's something that I've learned through all these experiences I've had in life. I'm very grateful for the road I've traveled, the good and the bad. And the big thing, people sometimes talk about their mission or their ethos. For me, it's there's a Stoic philosophy called Memento Mori, and Memento Mori says, know that you're mortal, know that you will die, but let that motivate you to live your best life every day. And so I carry that mindset through my life of the next second's not guaranteed. Like, really pour into the things that are important to you in your life, whether it's family or business, relationships, health and wellness, all the above. And really focus on those things, because that's what matters. It's not the new watch, it's not the car. And some of those things, people believe in those things, and that's fine, like you said.
Right.
But what really matters is time spent and well spent with people that you love and things you love to do.
And that's kind of how I got the word real things. I wrote my first book after the second cancer diagnosis, because I noticed people just focused on the things, right? So real things is more of like the experiences, and I like being in nature, and I like running.
I love it.
Because it makes me more engaged with what in the moment. I love dogs because it keeps me in the moment, right? And they stick their nose, I love, don't get me wrong, I like business, right? I really do. But I like engaging with people and trying to help them in that regard. And I'm not sure where I'm going with that. But then that's the Real Things Living. This podcast is kind of like an offshoot of my book, because I think some people focus too much on power and money, and it's nice, but it's not important to Bridget.
That's right.
And that's kind of why it's kind of taken off into this regard. And I got the idea to start this podcast after being a guest on other shows, podcast, and I just like talking and hearing about other people's stories, because it makes you think too. What can I make a little differently? And if you need to make changes, and to help you focus. I like to talk about focus on what's important, right? And that will affect your habits, I think, if you understand what your important things are in life. And you're at the stage where you got younger children, so you got a lot of fun stuff, I'm sure, going on every day. So are they what are they into? You know what I'm saying? My son's early 20s right now, so I'm in a different. So what are they really into? I just remember that mine were into everything.
Right. We try to give them a good mix of, growing up. I was I'm 38 now, so I was of that generation where we were outside all day playing, but, sports or running through the neighborhood or whatever, but chasing girls, whatever. Or, when it was nights or weekends, we would be playing video games. So it was like we had that nice marriage, but now it seems like it's leaning more towards the video games or being inside and stuff. So we try to keep things balanced. There's no such thing as balance. We try to keep things kind of calibrated to where they love to get outside. They love to be, right now their new thing outside is they have like little scooters they got for Christmas. So, they're pushing on one foot and they're riding on the other foot, kind of scooter thing there. They're really big into, when we do get inside, they watch Disney Plus. So if you're familiar with the streaming service, like we get to see all the old classics and some of the new cool stuff, which is awesome because I'm a huge comic book nerd, and there's a lot of Marvel stuff on there, Marvel movies, MCU. We're really big on, So Grayson is the oldest one. He's more of the analytical mind, the thinker. He likes to build things. So he's big into Legos and just kind of doing some fun stuff there. We do some sports too. So I grew up playing sports, baseball, basketball, football. We try to get outside as much as possible. And much like yourself, you mentioned that you run. I run too, and there's a nice little park where we live called Lost Mountain Park that has these outdoor kind of tracks and trails and stuff. And so we actually like to go walking through the trails. And so it's like whatever we can do depending on what nature throws at us, we'll kind of offset. Our goal is to be outside first. And then if we got to do something inside, we'll figure out what to do inside.
Right. That's really good. I believe in being outside as much as possible because kids got a lot of energy, right? And we started hiking a lot when our kids were little. Now, my younger son at the time, my husband, I put him in a backpack. He couldn't quite. We weren't doing serious hikes, but we did Red Top Mountain. Yeah. It's not that far from here. So we got them into doing stuff outside, right? I was from the generation. You got to come home when it's dark or the streetlights come on. Yeah. And that's kind of what we did. And another thing I emphasize with my kids, I think learning is important. So we always read to them. I'm in the background as publishing and printing. That's what I do. So I always had books for them. And so my older son was obsessed with dinosaurs. And so now he's getting a degree in biology.
That's awesome.
Based on the kind of books. So my husband and I, every night, we'd read a story, before they go to bed. And I joke, I laugh sometimes. My husband, he'd get home from work. I'd go upstairs and he'd be passed out on the floor with the book on him, because we're tired too. But
for sure,
he made that. I just emphasize books. And my younger son was into Legos, building. Yeah. So you just gotta, and he's now he understands tech and into games or gaming, whatever you want to call it. But my husband was a hockey player because he's from Wisconsin. So we went to Boston a lot. Nice. And not me, but my son was in travel team. And my husband, when I signed my son up for hockey, my husband's like, you don't know what you're getting us into.
It's a huge commitment.
It is. And our older son was good at it, but he didn't want to do that. But our younger son was obsessed with it. But he was really good at it and he was passionate. And now he He's now not doing it anymore, which is fine. But to me, being involved in something like sports teaches you how to work with other people from
For
different.
sure.
I just think that's important. I didn't expect him to be some professional. He always worried me as the mom, when but he was the one that was in the penalty box all the time because he was like his father. But I'm just saying he just, I don't know. They nicknamed him Cuddy. Our last name is Cudshaw, but they nicknamed him Cuddy. But it was a joke. Not really. His first, I'm just blabbing here. The first year he played, he was #1 in the league penalty minutes when he.
Awesome.
That's when we're like, okay, we need to like get you some better training, because part of it was he didn't know how to stop properly. He was like,
and he would run into people. Yeah.
Boom, on purpose. But so he got some really good training. We used to have the Thrashers here in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I remember.
So some of the guys one of the Jan Kaminsky, he played professional. He played for Russian. He's Russian, obviously, played professional. He trained our son to get with other boys. And so then my son got much better at, we just kind of put him out there to play, but then he's like, I really like this. And
started getting good.
It made him happy. Yeah. And that we still missed our hockey family. We just that's one thing you'll understand when they get a little bit older, if they're involved in stuff. You make friends too from other backgrounds, and that's kind of why I'm just that natural. I like to get out and like the running is still important. My older son was the runner, really good runner, but he doesn't do it anymore. He's in college, right? So he'll get it one day. I stopped too, but now that I'm older, I find a relief. So when you do run, you say you go to Lost Mountain Parks, and do you animal?
Say again?
Do you have like a dog or an animal that you take with you?
Yeah. So we have two. We have a dog. She was our first baby. Her name's Claire Bear. Claire Bear is a rescue, mostly Australian Shepherd mixed with whatever else, who knows.
Right.
But she's amazing. We love her. And she's been with us since she was just a few weeks old. She's 10 now. And then and I always grew up with a dog. I grew up with a dog in the house, which for me growing up, I didn't know that there was any other way until I moved down to Georgia and I saw people that have dogs that live outside their house.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I always grew up with a dog, and then cats. And so we also have a cat, and the cat's name is Maggie. And she's a little bit younger than Claire. We've had her for her whole life too, for almost 10 years. And it's funny because they're best friends, but whenever they get they want to roughhouse and kind of mess around, they'll start staring each other down, or kind of almost quasi boxing a little bit. But Maggie, she's so fast, and she's got the claws that she always wins. And she's tiny. She's the one who's always slapping the dog around and the
That's
dog
funny.
quits. Yeah. So yeah, we're big into animals. But in terms of, you mentioned Lost Mountain Park and running, I picked up running about a year ago, almost to the day. I had been in martial arts and fitness and sports a lot of my life, but I lost my dad about a year and a half ago, and my dad was a huge athlete. He was big into running, and there's just something about running. Number one, it was hard when I first started. It wasn't easy. As much as I thought I was in shape, it taught me how much I wasn't. But it was something about it. Yeah. It's something about it that taught me a lot of things, and it actually kept me close to my dad in a way. I'd go on a run, and you either do a lot of thinking or you do no thinking, depending on what your run entails. And so for the last year, I've already have a few scheduled this year, but I do about a race a month. And I started actually in my age group, which was still 35 to 39 in most places. I've been placing or winning, which is crazy because I'm not the smallest guy. I'm 6'1", 225.
Right.
For me to move, I'm running 8-minute miles for distance, which is pretty good. Yeah, but I'm competitive, so I want to get into that 7.5, 7 and change kind of mile. But that's made a huge mindset shift for me. And talk about resilience. I mean, that's something that most people that don't run, people don't run for a reason, because it's hard. So it's
I like it because I'm very competitive too. We have a lot in common. And I'm the old lady who gets these awards, and I'm going to be this year the 55, and I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? But I didn't know I was good at running until, my father was the one that raised me was a marathoner. I'm not into that. I'm more of a
Yeah.
the middle distance stuff, but I
You
just
do
didn't
like
know. I'm sorry.
15K or 10K or like
I
where do
like
you want
5K and 10K.
I
And
like 5K a lot.
I've done a half marathon before too. And when I did that, my foot was numb at the end.
Oh yeah.
I thought I stepped on a banana. And then my doctor said, my wife, like, what's wrong? I mean, it didn't stay numb, for a long time, but that's my body telling me, no, don't do that. So you got to listen to your body as well.
Circulation thing. Yeah, it could have been.
And it could be, I was just, and that's why I don't like treadmills, just because it's the same. I like being outside. I prefer the trails, but I don't know, because I am competitive. That's not the way I do it, but I do feel better. And I asked about the dog because my chocolate lab, he passed away last year. He was my running buddy. He was like, run with me. But
That's
I'm not
awesome.
at 8 mile minutes anymore, but I'm at 9, which is not bad for
That is good. Yeah.
my age. But back in the day, when I was in high school, they were wanting girls to do more sports, and that's kind of how.
For sure.
And I probably was good at running because I had an older brother who chased me all the time. So, right.
You had to be life or death back then.
Right. Back then, he was, I'm surprised. I joke how I survived, but I think but we were on our own a lot back then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think running, that's one of those events or sports that, that's by definition resilience right there. I mean, just the quitting mind, like things that are seeping into your brain when you're running, like, oh, this is uncomfortable, or I can't breathe the way that I want to, or oh, this, and this. It takes a lot of resilience to work around those things.
And you just adjust to make it happen. Like I noticed 100%. Now that I'm older, the first half mile, like, oh my God. But then after that, you just got to get your body.
You hit your stride.
Get your stride into it. And then, I don't know. I just like, I do stuff with the Atlanta Track Club, and I'm going to volunteer to help with that, the Olympic trials coming up, to help hand out water, whatever. But I just like being around people who like to run, and I'm sure you can kick my butt, but we should probably, I don't know. I just like that environment. And, I don't know. I don't think I'll do the PhD road race this year. It was brutal. And have you ever done that?
I haven't. No, I'm more of a 5K guy. I like to go
correct
fast
in
a short amount of time. Yeah. And the most I've ever done last year, there's this race I love to do called Serenbe. Heard of Serenbe? It's a gorgeous, like the Chattahoochee Hills.
Oh, that sounds fun.
It's a 15K, and it's the first time I ever, and I did that, and then ended up being like a 9.5 minute pace for 10 miles.
That's not bad, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of hills that go like this, so like, there's some stuff you're kind of, yeah.
That one of the hills in Atlanta for the Peachtree is called Cardiac Hill for a reason.
Yep.
It is 1 mile long incline, and you have to train for hills for that. And I did find I actually went a minute faster. I'm a year older, right?
Nice.
But I just don't know. There's so many people, and
thousands,
50,000 people. Okay, and that's just too. A lot of people are like walking, which is fine, but then like, get out of my way because I'm competitive.
You're dodging people, yeah.
Right, and so because I'm competitive, I was just like, you're in my way. But I mean, I don't know. I do like the races, but I do want to help. Like I said, I'm going to help volunteer, and it's just exciting to. I've just always like being around that mindset, like you said, the resilience. And I'm just got off tangent here, sorry. But I'm glad that you're into running. I think it's fantastic. I'm glad you and your wife are doing so well. And I'm glad your sons are doing well. It's just so much exciting stuff ahead of you.
Very lucky, man.
And you are, if you think about it, and just what you're doing. And I'm definitely going to share the links to your sites at the end. And is there any other advice you have for anybody regarding resilience or anything else?
The only advice I have, and resilience is one of those things where you can build it over time, and in different seasons of life will test your resilience more than others. But the biggest thing I could say is just be authentic with who you are and what you believe in, and don't be afraid to share that with the world. And there's some resilience in that too. Like, even for my story, which is similar, there's a guy that I love and I've followed for the last few years named David Goggins, and he has a book called Can't Hurt Me.
Right.
And David Goggins became, you know, he was this guy who grew up bullied, so we had that in common. Grew up from like a really crappy, poor life, and he turned himself into a Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, like worldwide speaker kind of guy, based on his mindset, based on his resilience.
Right.
And the one thing that I learned in that book that's always stuck with me is your history and your story, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't determine your future. You determine your future.
Right.
So no matter what's happened to you, no matter what you've done, good, bad, or indifferent, if you want something, it's up to you to go get it.
I like that. That is really great advice and a great way to end it. And I do appreciate your time, and we should probably meet again.
I agree.
I thank you so much, Jesse. And
My
have
pleasure.
a great,
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
have a great day, everybody.